Every single week, thousands of people search the words, "How much does a barndominium cost?" And every single week, they get the same misleading answer. A shiny low number. A price that sounds almost too good to be true. And for most of them, it is. Here is what nobody tells you up front. The people who blow their budgets, get rejected by banks, run into zoning nightmares, and end up with a sweating metal ceiling are not careless people. They are people who got bad information at the start. I have spent months researching real builds, real lender rejections, real cost overruns, and real construction mistakes in 2026, and today, I am handing you everything in one video. 10 questions, 10 honest answers. No fluff, no sales pitch. And stay with me, because question number 7 is the one that quietly kills more barndominium dreams than any other, and almost nobody talks about it. If this is the kind of no-nonsense content you are looking for, hit subscribe and drop a comment with the question you are most nervous about going into your own build. Now let's get into it. Question 1. How much does a barndominium actually cost per square foot? Let's start with the number that gets people into trouble before they ever break ground. You have seen the ads. Barndominium kit packages advertised at $30 to $50 per square foot. It sounds incredible, and that price is real, for the shell only. The shell is the steel frame, the exterior panels, and the roof. That is it. No foundation, no plumbing, no electrical, no insulation, no drywall, no flooring, no kitchen, no bathroom. Just a weather-tight metal box. Here is what a finished, move-in ready barndominium actually costs in 2026. National data puts finished builds between $140 and $250 per square foot, with a national average total project cost sitting around $230,000. In Texas and the Midwest, you might land closer to $140 to $180 per square foot turnkey. On the coasts or in markets with high labor costs, $200 and above is common. The dirty truth is that site preparation, concrete foundation, utilities, and interior finishes routinely account for over 60% of your total budget. That $50 per square foot kit becomes a $160 per square foot finished home once reality sets in. Plan for the full number from day one, not the kit number. Anyone who tells you differently is either uninformed or selling you something. Now you know what it really costs. But what happens when you walk into a bank and try to borrow that money? The answer is going to surprise you. Question 2. Why are banks refusing my barndominium construction loan? This catches more people completely off guard than anything else in the barndominium process. You have good credit. You have solid income. You have a down payment ready. And then the bank says no. Why? The core problem is comparable sales, or comps as lenders call them. When a bank finances a home, an appraiser needs to find recent, similar sales in your area to establish the property's value. Traditional homes are easy. There are comparable sales everywhere. But a metal building home with a shop on rural acreage? In most counties, there are almost no recent comps. To a national bank's underwriting algorithm, that looks like a risky commercial property, not a home. In 2026, major national banks still routinely decline barndominium construction loans for this reason. Your move is to skip them entirely and go straight to agricultural lenders, farm credit institutions, and regional community banks. These lenders keep loans on their own books. They understand rural and post-frame construction, and they look at the land value and building utility rather than just comparables from the subdivision down the road. The VA single-close construction loan also launched nationally in August 2025, which is a major development for veterans who qualify. USDA rural development loans remain an option for eligible locations. Whatever path you take, bring a detailed itemized cost breakdown and a licensed builder. That combination dramatically improves your approval odds. One more thing to know: loans from agricultural lenders may run on 15-year rather than 30-year terms, which means higher monthly payments. Budget for that from the start. Before you finance anything, you need to make a decision that affects the entire structure of your build: wood or steel. The answer changes everything about who builds it, how fast it goes up, and what it costs. Question 3. Should I build with wood post frame or rigid steel? This is one of the most debated questions in the barndominium community, and the honest answer is that neither is universally better. They are different tools for different situations. Post-frame construction. using large wooden poles set in the ground or on a slab, is the traditional Barndominium method. The big advantage is familiarity. Local residential subcontractors, framers, electricians, plumbers know how to work with post frame. You can hire locally, often at lower labor rates, and the interior build-out is straightforward with standard stud walls. Rigid steel frame construction gives you wider, completely clear span spaces, with no interior load-bearing walls or support columns. For shops, garages, and open-concept living areas, this is a major structural advantage. However, rigid steel typically requires specialized erectors, which can limit your local contractor options and sometimes add cost. Post frame generally comes in cheaper on the initial build. Rigid steel is often stronger under extreme loads and gives you more interior flexibility on large spans. In 2026, most owner-builders in rural areas lean toward post frame for cost and contractor availability. If you need a wide clear span of 60 feet or more for a serious shop or equipment bay, rigid steel earns its price premium. You have picked your frame type. You have got your financing lined up. But there is a silent threat inside every metal building that can destroy your walls, rot your framing, and cost you tens of thousands to fix. And most builders will not mention it until it is too late. Question 4. How do I prevent my metal roof and walls from sweating? Condensation is the hidden enemy of every metal building, and it is more dangerous than most people realize. When warm interior air meets a cold metal surface, moisture forms. In an uninsulated or improperly insulated barndominium, that moisture drips from your ceiling, saturates your walls, promotes mold growth, and quietly rots your interior framing. The solution is closed-cell spray foam insulation, applied directly to the metal exterior panels, and in 2026, this is non-negotiable for a livable barndominium. Closed-cell foam expands against the metal surface, creates a complete vapor barrier, and eliminates the cold surface that condensation needs to form. Open-cell foam does not provide the same moisture resistance on metal and should not be used alone on exterior metal panels. A minimum of 2 inches of closed-cell spray foam is the standard recommendation for most climate zones. In colder climates like the upper Midwest and Northeast, 3 inches is safer. Yes, spray foam costs more than bad insulation. Expect $1.50 to $5 per square foot, depending on thickness and your market. But skipping it, or cutting corners here, is one of the most expensive mistakes a barndominium builder can make. The cost to remediate mold and replace rotted framing inside a metal building dwarfs the cost of doing the insulation right the first time. Always hire a trained, certified spray foam contractor for this work. This is not a DIY application to save money on. You have got a dry, insulated building. Now it is time to design the inside. And here is where people make a mistake that turns their dream home into something that echoes like a gymnasium. Question 5. How do I design a floor plan that doesn't feel like a noisy metal warehouse? The structural freedom of a barndominium is one of its greatest selling points. No load-bearing interior walls means you can design almost any floor plan you want. That is genuinely exciting. But that same wide-open space creates an acoustic problem that is completely predictable and completely preventable if you plan for it. Large, open rooms with metal roofs, hard floors, and minimal soft furnishings create intense sound echo. Conversations become harder to understand. For television, audio bounces off every surface. A vaulted living room that looked stunning in the floor plan renders feels like shouting inside a shipping container when you actually live in it. The fix is not complicated, but it has to be designed in from the start. Acoustic ceiling panels significantly reduce echo in high cube spaces. Strategic placement of interior partition walls, even partial walls that do not reach the ceiling, breaks up sound waves. Soft furnishings like rugs, upholstered furniture, and curtains absorb sound that hard surfaces reflect. Spray foam insulation also adds a layer of sound dampening against the metal shell. If you are designing a great room, larger than 800 square feet under a vaulted ceiling, treat acoustic management as a line item in your budget, not an afterthought. The difference between a barndominium that feels like a warm home and one that feels like an industrial space is almost entirely in these details. The design is set. Now it is time to pour concrete. And this is the step where a single mistake can cost you $30,000 and weeks of construction delays. Question 6. What kind of foundation do I need, and why is plumbing so risky? Most barndominiums are built on concrete slab foundations, typically 4 to 6 inches thick, with thickened edges at load-bearing points. Costs in 2026 run $6 to $14 per square foot for the slab itself, and that is before site prep. A flat, prepared lot costs far less than raw acreage that needs grading, fill, and drainage work. Now here is the part that trips up first-time builders. All of your under-slab plumbing, every drain line, every toilet flange, every supply rough-in, must be installed and inspected before the concrete is poured. There are no second chances. Once that slab is down, moving a drain line means cutting through thick reinforced concrete with a saw. That is a dusty, expensive, time-consuming nightmare that costs thousands of dollars and delays your entire project. Work with a licensed plumber who has barndominium experience. Walk through the floor plan together before a single pipe goes in. Confirm the location of every fixture against your final floor plan. If you are still deciding between 2 floor plan options, resolve that decision before the slab is scheduled. The pressure of a concrete crew waiting on site is not when you want to be making floor plan decisions. Your foundation is solid. Your plumbing is buried exactly where it needs to be. But what happens when you show up to the county building office with your plans, and the clerk tells you that your barndominium is not allowed on your land? Question 7. Will local codes allow me to build a barndominium on my land? This is the question that quietly ends more barndominium projects than any other, and it is the one people ask last instead of first. Do not make that mistake. Zoning laws, land use codes, and HOA restrictions vary dramatically by county, municipality, and development. Some rural counties have almost no restrictions on residential metal buildings. Others have explicit minimum requirements for exterior materials, roof pitch, foundation type, and architectural appearance that effectively prohibit a metal exterior home. The issues to investigate before you buy land or finalize plans include county land use zoning classification, which determines what types of structures are permitted. Minimum roof pitch requirements exist in some codes that may conflict with standard metal building profiles. Exterior material restrictions are common in municipalities and some rural counties. And if there is any kind of HOA or deed restriction on the property, assume it prohibits metal buildings, unless the document specifically says otherwise. In 2026, the barndominium market has grown significantly, and many rural counties have become more familiar with these structures. But suburban municipalities and planned developments remain largely hostile to non-traditional residential construction. The safest approach is to call your county planning and zoning department before you spend $1 on plans or land. Ask specifically whether post-frame or metal building residential structures are permitted in the zone where your land sits. Get the answer in writing. You have cleared zoning. Now the big question: do you hire a general contractor or try to manage this build yourself to save money? The math here is not what most people expect. Question 8. Can I save money by building the interior myself? Short answer: yes, but with serious conditions attached. Acting as an owner-builder and managing your own subcontractors instead of hiring a general contractor can save 15 to 25% on GC fees. On a $250,000 build, that is real money, $37,000 to $62,000 in potential savings. But that money comes at a cost, measured in time, stress, and risk. Here is the condition most people do not see coming. If you are financing your build with a construction loan, most lenders require a licensed general contractor to oversee the project and approve draw disbursements. You cannot simply take the loan, act as your own GC, and draw funds as you go. Without a licensed contractor attached, many construction loans will not close. The DIY path works best for owner-builders paying cash, or for those who hire a GC through the shell and exterior phase, satisfying lender requirements, then take over interior finish work themselves. Painting, flooring, trim, cabinetry installation, and landscaping are all areas where owner labor genuinely reduces cost. Licensed trades electrical, plumbing, HVAC are required by code in virtually every jurisdiction, regardless of who is writing the checks. Be honest about your skills, your available time, and the impact of delays. A GC earns their fee by keeping subcontractors on schedule. When you are the GC and the framer does not show up for 2 weeks, that delay comes out of your pocket and your timeline. Your build is taking shape. But now you are standing in a massive vaulted space, wondering how you are going to heat it in January and cool it in August without a monthly energy bill that breaks the bank. Question 9. How do I properly heat, cool, and light a tall vaulted ceiling barndo? Standard residential HVAC systems are designed for 8 to 9 foot ceilings with moderate square footage. A barndominium with 16 or 20 foot vaulted ceilings and 2,000 to 4,000 square feet of open space is a completely different challenge. Undersized or wrong type systems will run constantly, fail early, and leave you uncomfortable and broke. The most effective approach in 2026 is multi-zone mini-split systems. These allow you to control temperature independently in different areas of the building living space, kitchen, master suite, shop without conditioning the entire structure whenever one zone needs adjustment. Mini-splits are efficient, relatively quiet, and well-suited to the varied use patterns of a barndominium with shop. High CFM ceiling fans are essential in vaulted spaces, not optional. In winter, reversing the fan direction pushes warm air that has risen to the peak back down to living level, dramatically improving comfort and reducing heating load. For lighting, high vaulted ceilings require careful planning because standard fixtures designed for 8-foot ceilings provide inadequate coverage at 16 feet. High bay LED fixtures mounted to track or structural members provide the broad, even coverage vaulted spaces need. Clerestory windows, horizontal windows, placed high on the walls just below the roofline, bring natural light deep into wide floor plans, without sacrificing wall space below. Proper insulation, already covered in question 4, is the foundation of all of this. A well-insulated barndominium with the right HVAC design holds temperature remarkably well. A poorly insulated one, with an oversized conventional system, is a monthly money pit. You have built it. Now it is time to insure it. And this is where people find out their metal home is being classified as something it absolutely is not. Question 10. Are barndominiums hard to insure, and do they hold resale value? Insurance is a genuinely tricky issue for barndominium owners, and the problem starts with classification. Some insurance companies default to classifying metal buildings as commercial or agricultural structures rather than residential homes. That misclassification results in policies that do not provide proper dwelling coverage, leave gaps in liability protection, or come with premiums built for a warehouse rather than a home. The solution is to work with insurers who specialize in rural residential and non-traditional construction. These companies understand barndominiums, classify them correctly as residential dwellings, and provide standard homeowner coverage with appropriate replacement cost valuation. Your barndominium builder or barndominium community forums are the fastest way to find insurers with real experience in your region. On resale value, the honest picture is location dependent. In rural markets where barndominiums are common and appreciated, much of Texas, the Midwest, the South barndominiums, with attached shop or garage space, hold strong value and can command premium prices. The integrated shop is a genuine value add that a significant portion of rural buyers actively seek. In high-density suburban neighborhoods, the story is different. Non-traditional architecture in a market dominated by conventional homes creates appraisal challenges that can suppress resale value. If you are building primarily as an investment or with a 5 to 10-year exit in mind, your rural market conditions matter enormously. Build in a location where the lifestyle supports the structure. A barndominium with shop space on a rural parcel, in a county with strong agricultural activity and comparable sales, is a solid long-term asset. A metal building home dropped into a suburban cul-de-sac is fighting the market from day one. You just covered the 10 questions that separate the barndominium builders who succeed from the ones who end up over budget, underbuilt, or stuck in a legal battle with their county. Kit price versus real cost, banking roadblocks, wood versus steel, condensation, acoustics, foundation plumbing, zoning, owner-builder risks, HVAC, insurance. 10 questions, 10 honest answers. If you are in the early stages of planning, the single best thing you can do right now is call your county planning and zoning office before you spend $1 on land or plans. That one phone call has saved more barndominium dreams than any other step in this process. If you found this video genuinely useful, please share it with someone who is planning a barndominium build. It might save them a very expensive mistake. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.